yeah, like exactly to the point. Like it feels like that early, like young baby situation. That's like the boot camp of motherhood. It's like, it's like Navy SEAL training, except you don't actually know what the next activity is. It's like, can you survive this day? Can you survive this weekend? Can you survive this week? And it's like the babies that are colicky and a global pandemic and all of these things and how all of that gets tossed up into the mix. And then you get to a point where, like you said, you're doing that coaching role. So when you were in the real thick of it, how did you, like, as you said, keeping these social relationships and keeping a hand on the outside world while you're in the deep end?
Hello and welcome to the And Both podcast. Here we are going to hear from moms and those in motherhood that are doing the thing that works for them. They are honoring themselves alongside the all-encompassing role and level of expectation that is motherhood. And we are going to hear from as many different people as possible in their own experience. So you can find people to relate to. You can hear stories that will make you laugh, make you cry, all of the above, and that we will come together as a community to support one another in a way that is holistic and honoring of the woman and the mother as a whole. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the And Both podcast. My guest today is Julie Cole. Welcome, Julie.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited. Well, let's get started with you telling people what you would like them to know about you.
Oh, gosh. Okay, where to start? Yeah, so I'm Julie Cole. I'm the co-founder of Mabel's Labels, which is a company that started 22 years ago in my sister's basement as a result of a couple of things, me wanting to leave the traditional workforce and also a product missing from the market. So what we do is we make dishwasher microwave safe labels for all the stuff kids load. So we started with one label and it was for bottles and sippy cups and wipes containers. And now 22 years later, we have, of course, like clothing labels, shoe labels, allergy alerts, you name it. It's all on our website, mabelslabels.com. So that was, so I'm actually a recovered lawyer turned entrepreneur. And the recovery is going very well. I am recommended 12-step program. But it was because leaving the traditional workforce was a priority for me at that time because I actually have 6 kids. But at the time, I only had 3. But the oldest had just turned 3 and was diagnosed with autism. So I wanted to be able to do the pivot. I wanted a little more flexibility than the traditional workforce would have to offer me because I wanted to be able to advocate for him and set up a program for him and make him the best little fella and give him what he needed. So, he already had 2 younger siblings, so it was already a long show, and I did go on to have 3 more. So entrepreneurship seemed to be the way to go. And along with my co-founders, we had this really great idea for a product that was missing from the market. So, at that time, it's like, all right, should we do our label idea? And we never looked back. So we started my sister's basement and now, we have 50 full-time employees. We're a really big award-winning company. I'm a best-selling author. I do a lot of writing, a lot of media. Again, we 6 kids are now sort of grown, and it's interesting having, your family grow and your business grow at the same time. So many parallels, which we can chat about. Yeah, so that's pretty much me in a nutshell. Never done.
Oh my God, it's a big nutshell. It's more of a tree.
And I'm a bit of a nut, so it works.
Well, I think, so first of all, this is not a sponsored episode, but I have bought so many Mabel's labels that when your name came up, I was like, is this for real?
Yeah.
I honest to God Googled you when your name came up on the guest request thing because I was like, there's no way. I 3 days ago, I just got my kids' labels and clothing stamps for summer camp.
Oh, yeah, the clothing stamp's a big hit because, it can go on the socks and everything. I'm so happy to hear that you're a long-time Mabel customer, loyal fan.
Yeah.
And it is, and being in this mom space, and it is, it's been awesome because, as moms, we really understood our customers and what we want, which is durability, beautiful things. We don't want to lose stuff. We spend a lot of money on our kids' crap. We don't want to lose it. So, in the mom, we have become a very loved brand. And because I would say the secret process. We do what we say we're going to do. It's going to stick, right? You're gonna outgrow their stuff. They're not going to use their bottles or sippy cups anymore. They're going to move on to Stanley's, and then they'll get a label for that because they don't want to lose those either, because holy heck, like expensive things, right? And when your kids go away to camp, you want that stuff coming back. So
Yeah.
it's such a well-loved brand. And I'm so happy to hear that you've been a long-time customer. That one's
And I'll tell you, you're based in Canada, right?
Well, we are. So I am in Canada, and we do have a production facility here near Toronto, but we also have a production facility in California. So we're
Nice.
both. So yeah, a lot of our customers are mostly Canada and the US, but of course, being e-commerce, we've had customers in 100 countries, right?
Very cool. I love that. And I will say that the initial set of labels that I got, so I'm a Canadian. Well, now I'm technically a dual citizen, but I lived in the US. I've lived here for 25 years. My kids are all born here, all of this stuff. So when it came time to need to label things, I bought labels from Mabel's Labels because they were the only one where I could get the labels with a Canadian flag on it. And I was like, I legitimately do not care how much these things cost, because I also had one small child and was like, oh my God, whatever. I need to get some sort of maple leaf situation infused into my children.
It's so fun because we do get a lot of expats or kids who are at American schools and whatever, countries that their parents are, with the governments and whatever. So we do, it's so funny. We do get a lot of expats who love to, bring out that maple leaf once in a while, especially now.
I know it is a weird space.
We'll just parking lot that.
Yeah, exactly. Leave that one over there. Oh my gosh.
So as I'm sipping my Tim Hortons.
Yep. I'm jealous. I don't live close enough to the border to have that here. So, but my kids and I, we're going to Montreal for spring break. And so I'm like, my car will be filled with Timbits before long.
So Tim Hortons, for listeners who are not Canadian, is just a cheap and cheery coffee shop with donuts, and Timbits are like the donut holes, and it's just very Canadiana.
I love it.
You need to block. And Montreal's such a fun town. You guys will have a blast for spring break.
Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good to get out of Dodge for a little bit and change the scenery, all
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
So when you decided to start Mabel's Labels and you had 3 kids and you were like, I am out of the corporate hoopla, thank you very much. What is that conversation like? When you're like, you know what? I think it's time to do something that, again, like you said, is not a product that's easily available or readily available or available at all in the market. Because I went to summer camp as a kid and we had those print label things that you had to iron on, and none of them ever stuck. And so that was terrible.
Well,
but what is that?
Yeah, what does that look like? So look, there are a lot of conversations and there's a lot of research. So we did a lot of market research, and we're just like, there's something in North America like this, right? So we figured, because it was something we wanted and was missing, that it made a lot of sense. And you've got to remember too, 22 years ago, there wasn't social media, right? So it's not like we could run this big social media campaign saying, hey, Mabel's Labels, you should get us. So in those early days, we did try and do a lot of things like press releases. And I literally just turned up places, or we gifted them, or, we just counted on word of mouth. And it happened because, a mom would say you at the side of the soccer field with your kid stuff labeled and be like, oh my goodness, what is that? I need that, right? So it was genuinely word of mouth. But when we made the decision, there were a couple of things to consider. We thought, okay, we're really going to have to see, when you bring something to market, you have to actually educate the market that they need your product sometimes. Fortunately, that wasn't a huge task for us because, as I said, it was a product that was needed and loved, and moms spread the word. And then for yourself, you've got to be like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I went to law school for so long and it was so hard. And why, do I want to leave that? And, if you have a spouse, you have to manage those expectations, right? Because, everyone romanticizes entrepreneurship, but really, I was putting kids to bed at 8 and then going in the basement and making labels till 2 a.m. and then getting up at 6 a.m. and doing the do again over and over. And that's what it looks like. It's not putting kids to bed and pouring a glass of wine and throwing on Netflix. If you have a spouse or a partner, they need to understand what that's going to look like. You're not having date nights. You're not having, You're not having me time. And you're without a salary. So you're not buying that new car. You're not going on that holiday. Like it's, you're in the trenches. So a lot of it, I think, too, is around managing expectations with your family about what it's going to look like. And they better be on board and actually understand and be supportive. Otherwise, it won't work. Either the business won't work or your marriage won't work because it's a tough slog. And also, you have to have that realistic conversation of, if you have a spouse, do they have enough to carry you, like carry the family? Like in my case, it was, we also had to pay for a lot of ABA for my son with autism and a lot of speech therapy and a lot of things like that, right? So there are a lot of conversations, but I also think the funny conversation is like with the generations ahead of you, like, and you're dealing with a lot of sort of, I'd say even generational trauma when it comes to things like money and appetite for risk. So, my grandparents moved from Ireland in 1950. So, my mom was raised and you cleared your plate. You never knew where your next, they were very, having a stable job was everything, right? So when we told my grandpa, my sister was leaving her teaching career and I was leaving law to make labels in her basement, he's just like, what? Monstrous. What are you doing? Now, having said that, we had some early hits, early growth, some quick wins. And luckily, he was still alive. We moved into our beautiful 20,000 square foot facility, and he was here for the big opening, and he could see all our equipment and all our employees. And we could say, "See, Grandpa, we did it." And he was our number one fan. But I think for a lot of people, because people will say, "Oh my God, you're starting a business. You're not too crazy." What? And you are going to deal with a lot of that. And I think a lot of that, you have to think of the lens it's coming from, right? Especially if it's parents or the generation ahead, or if you're immigrants, or if there's money trauma, things like that, there's going to be some tough conversations.
For sure. And I think too, like that's the stuff that gets edited out on the Instagram, like hashtag boss mom stuff that's out there, right?
It's all like TED Talks and book deals and like going on Shark's Tank. And I think it's all like that. And it's really not like that for most people. And even when it is, it's after 22 years. You're in line for a long time.
It's like I think about like the music industry, artists and their 10-year one overnight success situation. It's like, and it's the same with kids too, right? Like you get your kids to a certain point and like they have that thing that happens, right? Like they go to a friend's house and then the parents like, oh my gosh, they like cleared their plate and they helped clean up the kitchen and all this stuff. And you're like, my kid did that? That's when that comes back where you're like, oh.
It wasn't all for naught. It wasn't all for naught. Out there in the wild, we do what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the delayed gratification of all of those things coming together, for sure.
That's right. And I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. I mentor a lot of entrepreneurs and, they're always like, oh, maybe I should take a salary. And I'm like, yeah, these are things that you have to consider. Like, is it time to draw a salary? Or is it time to put more money in the business? Or is it time to get an investor and give away a bit of your business? Because, say you give away 20% of your business, but you're making $1 bazillion, only getting 80% of $1 bazillion is better than getting 100% of $20, right? So you need to weigh all these things out for sure. But yes, it definitely is one of those things that a lot of people don't talk about. They talk about the hashtag boss mom.
Yeah, exactly. So how old are your kids now?
So they are big. My youngest is about to turn 16. So they're like 16, 18, 19, 22, 23, 24, or something like that. It just seems to change every day. In fact, I have two birthdays in the next week, so that'll all change. So yeah, they're bigger, like they've grown up with this business and, they just always kind of been the kids running around in Mabel's Labels basement, had their summer jobs, putting labels, making labels, putting labels in envelopes, getting them out the door. So it's been a real journey for them too. And I think it's been wonderful in that, they get to see their mom be passionate about something. They get to see their mom excited about something outside of them. I mean, I really do love them. I really do. They're really great. They're great. I really enjoy them. But they've also been able to, I feel like there's been some good role modeling. The other thing too, I think, about when they were little that people don't talk about is like the flexibility is great. And I'm going to say like, I did appreciate that because, when you have 6 kids, you never know. I mean, even when you have 2 kids, you never know who you're getting out the door that morning, right? Somebody's got pink eye, somebody's got lice, somebody puked. Like there's always, you have to have some flexibility. And with 6, like you literally have somebody home like most. Like it's so hard to get in flu season, it's pretty. So, and also you want to be that, I wanted the flexibility so I could be that mom who could go like on the school trip to the apple orchard or those sorts of things. But people also romanticize flexibility. And while it is great, it also doesn't get your work done for you. So yes, you can go to school and be the pizza mom or whatever, but you will also be on your laptop at midnight, getting the stuff done then that you do done when you were handing out the pizza. So it's not for everyone. And these are the things that you need to consider. I loved it. I wouldn't change it for a thing, but there are a lot of things to think about when you're going to do this journey. And I would suggest if you need a lot of me time, if you need, this is probably not for you. If you like, entrepreneurship might be, but maybe not 6 kids, right? So, like maybe have 2 kids and do it or have 3 kids and don't know a good government job, get a pension, these sorts of you gotta do. And there's no right answer. There's no perfect way. You just have to know what your capacity is and live within it, right for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that too, like maybe that's one of the throwback gems that we didn't realize at the time of not having like a social media, right? It's that now everyone's made to feel like you can be an entrepreneur or you should have a side hustle, so you can like afford groceries. But yeah. So there's all of that part. But like, 22 years ago, there's no person who's like showing up on your phone saying, this is what you're supposed to be doing with yourself. I mean, this is like 22 years ago. I feel like that we're still on like the block phone, not the brick, but like,
dude, we still had people like we're in e-commerce business and people are like, wait, I have to put my visa into the computer machine. Like it feels like e-commerce, like that was just sort of even coming about, right? So but I will tell you a couple things. So the 22 years ago now, luckily I had co-founders, but for my friends who were solo entrepreneurs at the time, it was a lonely slog. I mean, if you were doing the mom entrepreneur thing, you were home with kids, and then when they were napping or whatever, and you were working, you were also very lonely. It was isolating. And just like parenting can be, being a mom can be isolating, being a solo entrepreneur can be isolating. Again, there are so many parallels. So it was really important those days to get out and make sure that you're going to these networking events, that you're connecting with people, which was very hard if you had small kids, you were trying to manage all the things. So with social media also came online groups, masterminds, webinars. Like I can meet with a mentor a mentee who lives anywhere in the world, and we can connect this way and they can run things by you. But I do believe strongly that your network is your network. And, as solo entrepreneurs, the brain gremlins can be telling us things. We're not worthy. You're never going to succeed. Why do you think you can do this? So you need to make sure you're connecting with other entrepreneurs who have been there, done that, and be like, they can help you shut down those gremlins, because that can be a very dangerous space. And to your point about social media, it can be dangerous too, right? Because you can see what other people are doing. And that narrative can run again, be like, why are her kids always clean? Why does she always make nice dinners? And also her business seems to be doing well. You're seeing the highlight reel. You have to remember, you're only seeing what they want to show you. And if you have a feed that is making you feel bad, then you change your feed. You curate your feed to make you feel good. This is important to your mental health. You can unfollow people. You can remove them coming into your stream on all. So make sure you do that, because it's very important. Entrepreneurs' mental health can be tricky business. I've got a good friend who is a therapist just to entrepreneurs for a reason. We also are very, entrepreneurs are very ADD, like 30% of entrepreneurs are ADD. So there's a lot of tabs open. Throw in some kid stuff there. You have a kid who is ADD, that can be very triggering for your ADD. So there's a lot going on for moms who are managing the mother load, kids and business.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I'm a solo founder, and I don't think that I could have, I just cannot imagine the length of development time and the length of startup time 22 years ago. I don't think it was.
A lot of my solo entrepreneur friends from those days aren't, they're not doing it anymore. They didn't, and a lot of them also, like a lot of the mom friends who did it, their men were really involved, like their spouses, if they had male spouses, And, and people used to say that to us all the time, be like, oh, so what do your husbands do with it? And we're like, nothing. Like women can actually run businesses. Moms can run businesses without the dads.
Run everything else. Might as well, right?
Friggin' world. Come on, let's face it. So yeah. So I mean, they did rely more, I found, on their like domestic partners to, and which makes sense because you have to throw things at somebody. You need feedback. You need that, right? Because as you said 22 years ago, if you were on your own, it would have been a hard slog for sure.
Right? I do appreciate the ability to connect with people online in, that really narrows down the lift or, eases the lift for networking, for information, for whatever. Like I attend sessions that are, on everything, right? Like funding, fundraising, accelerator programs, different like other women founders getting together, people that are building in the fam tech space also, all of those pieces. The
Like,
thing that I think is
right? Like, how could you have done that? And people going into like people like you sharing information with guests, like podcasts, people can tune in and learn,
Yeah. And I still, though, maybe a month ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, was counseled that it would be easier for me to fundraise if I had a male co-founder for my business. And I was like,
literally, what? Women get 3% of VC funding. So we know that, but there is a shift. And now as women are, getting companies acquired and have more money, they are being very intentional about funding and investing in other women-run businesses. So it's going to be a changing space. I'm convinced.
Me too. I think like the more, again, and it's participating in these sessions and events and things like that, where these conversations are happening in front of you. I mean, they're happening thousands of miles away, but you're like, no, somebody else does see this as a problem and somebody else does see this as being really important. I think it's also interesting how there's sort of this like long pocket of it is what it is. And then all of a sudden there's like a giant shuffle of things. And I feel like it comes when you get entrepreneurs like people that have 6 kids who built a business who are like, yeah, no, that's just a no for me. We're going to do things differently. Like there has to get to that tipping point, like the arcade game, where you put the quarters in and they sort of slide closer to the edge. And like, you need that one person who's like, I'm not putting a quarter in the machine. I'm putting a whole toonie in the machine because we're on a Canadian adjacent podcast here and a Canadian supporting podcast here. Is that like I'm shoving the whole toonie in and then we're really going to pile this over the edge.
And I see it like it's almost like a generational thing. Like our foremothers have done a lot of work and now we're coming in and being like, no, just no. Like I even see it in the menopause space because that's where I am. And like for years, like my mother, they were all gaslit. Like, oh, menopause is just part of life. And no, don't take hormones because, you'll get cancer. And it's like nobody actually did research, like proper research, because it was a woman problem. And so now we've got women saying, absolutely not. I mean, if I need glasses because my eyes are aging, I need estrogen because my estrogen is depleting. And we're not being gaslit. We're advocating for ourselves in this space and in the business space, in the parenting space as well, and we have to own our own, everything we do, we have to own our bodies. We have to have our own money and we have to be able to advocate. And I think we have that generation of women coming through it. And we're going to be making sure that we're funding our sisters, that we're not getting gaslit in the medical profession. All these things are happening, right? Like, I don't know if you follow Cindy. She's the Pink CEO. And she's awesome. Cindy Eckert. I was on a panel with her at Mom 2.0 a couple of years ago. And she sold her company for billions. Like, I'm not exaggerating, billions of dollars. And she created the female equivalent of Viagra because it was like, there's like how many kinds of Viagra out there? And like, there's nothing to deal with a woman's libido. Like, what is this? So now she just, with all of her billions of dollars, she funds women's companies.
That's amazing.
Got to get her on the podcast.
Yeah, that would be awesome. There's a lot of layers to that conversation that I feel like would be really helpful for a lot of people. Oh my gosh. So the day to day, right? Like you don't have a toddler or you don't have a newborn or you don't have all of that stuff. Like what does the day to day look like now that you can I mean, you could travel, you could do,
Yeah.
you're
Look,
not like making lunches.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I raised my kids pretty independent, so they're making their own lunches pretty early, but which happens when there's six of them, right? Like,
Yeah.
I always don't ever do for a child what a child can do for themselves, right? So look, the day to day, it is easier. I mean, let's face it. When I had those kids, I had 6 C-sections. When my oldest was 6, I had my 5th. Like I packed those first 5 in really tight. I didn't sleep for 10 years. I'm not going to lie. I slept for 2 hours. I got up, fed a baby, slept for 3 hours. That was it for 10 years. It was a slog. There were times you couldn't, with toddlers, you can't take your eyes off them. They're going to be drinking bleach under the sink if you do. So, people say bigger kids, bigger problems. Baloney. It's way easier. My teeth eat a lot. I eat something other than crusts for lunch. So it is easier, but you do move, and even it's like your business, you move more into a coaching role. But some of the times sometimes there are bigger problems. You still have to be available and you have to know your kids. Like, I've got a kid who called me from college and was like, Mom, I think I'm sick. And that kid, I was like, I got to drop everything and go. Because if that kid calls me and tells me they're sick, they probably have to go to the hospital. I have another kid who could call me and say they're sick. And I'm like, take a Tylenol and get to class. Right? So you got to know your kids. They're all different. And then sometimes, and this is a very sad one, I got a call from my kid. I had to go up. A child on his floor in residence in dorm had passed away, and they're all in the middle of exams. And right then and there, I'm like, I got to drop things and go and be there and get some grief therapy for my kid. Like, so things, you're still needed. It's just in a really different way, And it's not the physical way. Like, I'm not, everybody can pack for themselves if we're going away. Like, it's not like you're changing diapers. You're like, it's not physically exhausting, but it can be sort of mentally and emotionally tiring. But it's also a joy because you've seen all of your hard work. Like, there's such delight. Like, I always thought I was a baby person, but like having 3 teenagers and 3 kids in their early 20s, like it's a delight to have conversations with them and be that house where everybody comes over, and it's just been a lot of fun. And it does. I said to them, sometimes I feel like an outdated CEO in the family, right? Like, I feel like that guy. I often joke about how it's like the outdated CEO goes to the office every day and brings the newspaper and sits there and reads the paper just so they feel needed or feel important and want to be seen. And sometimes it can feel like that when your kids grow up. So I think whether you're a mom or an outdated CEO, I think it's really important, particularly for women, to be making sure that we're keeping those social connections, that we are having other hobbies, that we're not, because we don't want that identity crisis to happen. My kids are gone. Who am I? I sold my business. Who am I? So what are we doing to make sure that we're filling ourselves up with other things? Like, are we on a board? Maybe, if you're not doing your business anymore or you've retired, maybe take a board position, maybe do some volunteerism, maybe whatever, but try and do something so that you don't have that identity crisis when the kids grow up and the business doesn't need you as much, because that's the goal, right? Like, the goal is that I can get hit by a bus outside of the Mabel's Labels office and it doesn't impact business, right? Just like my kids, right? Like, the goal now is like to raise them to be independent, and that's what we've been in training to do, was to do that. And then they do it. And then you're like, oh, no, I'm not needed. Shit. You find your job too well, right? Do your job well and you won't be needed. Yeah. But that's like and you're needed in a different way. As kids age, even from toddlers to school age, it doesn't happen overnight. It's gradual, right? So they're getting independence along the way. So it doesn't feel like all of a sudden, it's like people are like, how do you do 6 kids? I can't even manage 2. And I'm like, 6 didn't land on my lap one day,
Right?
Like,
oh my God.
I need time to adjust.
Move the next one along. And I think, like, exactly to the point, like, it feels like that early, like, young baby situation. That's like the boot camp of motherhood. It's like, it's like Navy SEAL training, except you don't actually know what the next activity is. It's like, can you survive this day? Can you survive this weekend? Can you survive this week? And it's like the babies that are colicky, and a global pandemic, and all of these things, and how all of that gets tossed up into the mix. And then you get to a point where, like you said, you're doing that coaching role. So when you were in the real thick of it, how did you, like, as you said, keeping these social relationships and keeping a hand on the outside world while you're in the deep end? How did you navigate that for yourself? And I mean, that was also
Yeah.
happening with entrepreneurship too.
Sure. So, I mean, for me, kind of being out there is my personality, right? So there's that. So I was always like doing moms groups and inviting moms over with babies and having like little play groups and things like that because I also like, I think my secret sauce is I don't get my knickers in a knot about much. Like if you bring all the kids over and my house is messy, I'm okay with it. You know,
Mhm.
if I don't have like the perfect snacks, I'm okay with it. I'll be like, if anyone says to me, can I bring something? I am always like, yes, yes, you can. I would like you to bring a salad. Oh, if you could bring an hors d'oeuvre, that would be great. I never say no, you know, and I'm
Right.
not a perfectionist and I really don't care what people think about me. So it does make it helpful. So it made for easy socialization in those early days. I often would go to, you know, early year centers and like do crafts, have nursery school things going on. And I was that mom who found it easier to pack up a triple stroller and go to the park than to stay home. Like I wouldn't have got through COVID if I had my babies during COVID. Staying home alone with all my babies, that would have been really difficult for me. My heart goes out, like, you know, not even being able to I have siblings, right? So we would get our babies together and we would all go to my mom's house. Like that's what got us through the days. Cause as you know, like
Mhm.
filling time, like getting through the days. And people say to me, oh, just do one day at a time. I'm like, one day, no way. I'm getting through on 20-minute chunks. In 20 minutes, somebody will be fed. In 20 minutes, somebody's not bleeding. In 20 minutes. Like I had to break it down smaller than one day at a time to keep the sanity going, right?
Mhm.
So I think that, you know, I was able to manage it because I'm not one who gets super overwhelmed with like the idea of packing up a bunch of kids. Like I had 5 car seats, right? So it'd be like, okay, let me start loading these guys up. And I was okay with it. But back to my earlier point of you've got to know what, you know, what works for you and what kind of capacity you have for this nonsense. And it is funny too, because I ran into my next door neighbor last night has baby little Iris, and she's going to be 1 next month. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe she's going to be 1 next month. And Olivia was like, I know, like it's so fast. And yet it's been the longest year of my life. And I'm like, 100%,
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
Filling the days, right? Fill in the days. And, you know, it can get boring too. Like it can get boring. And that's why I think entrepreneurship was good for me because I'm like, if I read The Hungry Caterpillar one more time, I'm
Mhm.
going to lose my mind. And people are always like 6 kids, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but you know, a kid be like, Mom, will you play My Little Ponies with me? I'm like, go find a sibling. It's why I had that. Like they did play together and do their things, right? They
Yeah.
have a lot of core memories. And when COVID happened and I had 2 away at university at the time and they got sent home, I'm like, this is our time to shine. Like the 6 of them home, they're like having movie nights. They're all in the pool. They're hiking. They're putting Dungeons and Dragons campaigns together. They're playing euchre. They're whatever. They got
Mhm.
Minecraft worlds. They're all doing. And I was just like, aha, this is why I had 6 of them. They're not isolated. I'm not the entertainment. You know, I've got a friend with an only, and she's like, I have to play with this kid nonstop and I have to work and he's homeschooling. And, you know, it was really tough for people with little ones who you know, needed a lot of parental attention at that time.
Yeah.
So sometimes it pays off having a big family, not gonna lie. I mean, we're
That
not
was
the
definitely
doers. They're not raising each other. We're not the doers, but they certainly have responsibilities and they're siblings. They can help out.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I do remember the early days of COVID. People were like, "Would you like to form a pod?" And I was like, "Well, how many is a pod?" And they're like, "We're thinking like 4 is a pod." And I was like, "I have 4."
Yeah.
Okay. Like, thank you for informing me I have a pod.
I'm not even gonna lie. I would go on a hike with my kids with 6 of them and the dog. We'd be hiking somewhere, and people would give us dirty looks because they would think that I was having my kids and their friends hike with us because there's so many of them. So people give me these dirty looks going, really? Really? I'm like, they're all mine. Like, this is my pod.
They
I
all
created
kinda look alike.
a pod. Well, that's it. I'm like, look at their faces. So actually, a friend did make me a t-shirt that said, yes, they're all mine for me to wear on hikes. So nobody would judge me.
Right? Like, this is
Good
not
times.
okay.
Good times.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So when I love that. I just like you get that I've done that for so long, right? Like I have 4, but like you have the
Fourth plenty.
stroller. 4 is plenty. The stroller and one on a scooter. I do. I like 4. And then you got one in the backpack.
How many years now?
They are 12, 10, 7, and 5.
Oh, yeah. Nice. You're at a nice spot. Yeah.
No one, like, I only help one kid in the bathroom. One kid is moving into independence. One kid, like, much more independence. And the ones in the middle are kind of in that sweet spot of, like, young, old, like, no one's mad about where they are at in their life right now.
Right. Yeah, you are kind of in that sweet spot with them. Enjoy it. Yeah. Yeah, but you know what? Enjoy and I think that's been something that's been really helpful both with business and with my family is that I loved when we were startup with Mabel and I loved when I had babies. I loved when we were like experiencing some growth and I loved when I had preschoolers. Like it does parallel and you have to enjoy every stage and you have to be comfortable getting uncomfortable because as soon as you think you know what you're doing with babies, they become toddlers and then preschoolers. As soon as you think you know what you're doing with a startup, you get a growth and then like, oh crap, I need to hire people and I don't know anything about HR or I need, I need to hire an IT guy. I need a new website. I don't know how to do this. So you're always, whether it's parenting or whether it's business, you're always experiencing change and that's the fun and the sport of it. So enjoy it.
I think, I think that's true in every facet. It's like everything changes all the time. And it's just this idea of that you can't, we're not doing 50 years in a sheet cake anymore. You need stuff to change. And I think we do better when stuff changes. I think that's how, I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to do the same job every single day because like what do you get to do in the world,
keep
right?
Growing, right? You got to keep growing.
Yeah.
And once you stop growing, I think it's just boring. Like it's just boring. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like that's the whole thing that draws entrepreneurs and kind of, keeps that dopamine hit coming is the constant learning, the constant change, the innovation. Like that's, that's what floats our boat, right? And that's why we're in this game.
Yeah, that's why you like
serial entrepreneurs. That's why you see serial entrepreneurs. They sell a business, they start another one because they're like, that's how they're programmed, right? Like that's what and you get used to it. Entrepreneurs can be very unhireable.
Oh, I have said this for sure. Right? Like a good chunk of the reason why I'm like, I am not meant to be employed. Like, not that I'm meant to work, but I am not meant to be an employee. I am not like badge number 72.
Right.
It is not.
On the line. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is, you know what? There's something great about that too. We need the worker bees. I've got to hear. I've got people who've been working in our production facility for 20 years and they come to work, they get their job done. They're awesome. They're part of this culture. And, some have been like, we're like, do you want to move up? Do you want to become a supervisor? They're like, no, I love what I do. And I'm like, excellent. Because we need everybody. We need everybody. That's why you don't hire people who are like you. You hire people of different skills than you. You don't hire people that, you can just hire more leaders, hire people who are better than you at certain things. You got to leave the ego at the door and hire people for the right reasons.
Yeah. And I think to also focus on curiosity as in all of that stuff, right? Like curiosity around what are the next stages that your kids are going to go through? What is the next stage for you that you're going to go through? What does that look like? Like I had this conversation this was a couple years ago. This was right before I started the podcast. I had a conversation with a mom. Her youngest was going into kindergarten and it was that kindergarten day. And I said, like, what does this mean for you now? I did not say, what are you going to do now? Because that's like, but I said, what does it mean for you in the scope of everything else? And she was like, I don't even know what I like anymore.
Right.
Because I have spent all of this time so focused on, going from one stage to the next. And I was like, well, so what do you do now? What do you like? Let's like, ever the curious person and maybe the entrepreneur in me. I was like, what do you do? It's like, I don't even know.
Yeah, sometimes it takes time, right? Like sometimes you just need to take time to be like, okay, what is next? You've got to just sit with that uncomfortableness for a while until you figure things out. Like that woman probably hasn't even had time to think about herself in how many years, right? And then there is a thing too. I don't know if you 4. So again, you don't know who you're getting out the door that day. But also then you realize they're in school. You have time to have a cup of coffee, throw a load of laundry in, return some emails, do some planning and then they're back in doorstep at 2:30 or whatever. You're like,
Yes.
already?
Mhm.
That went
Mhm.
fast.
Yeah. Yeah, but you run around like your hair's on fire and you feel like you're in quicksand the entire time,
Yeah.
right? You're like,
So,
"I have a list that's a mile long and I have 17 seconds to do it." I mean,
and
that's
then
the
you, like
preschool.
where you are too, like then you get to that busy age. Like I remember six and ice hockey, dance, lacrosse, and it's all like, they get them from school. It's like, right, okay, dinner, homework, like, and it's just that becomes that really busy time for your family where it's like
Mhm.
thermoses in the car on the way to, and I think for me, like COVID really taught me, like, no, we're not going back to a lot of stuff. You people can play on the court. You people
Yeah.
can have paper route. Like I'm not going back to that. We do not
Mhm.
need to be over programmed. Me has to do all of the things. You can pick,
Yeah.
they pick one sport and one instrument or whatever, and that's it. It's enough. Of course, it's
Yeah.
still because there's so many of them, but I think a lot of people realized during that how programmed their kids were, and they're like, it's actually nice to go for a walk together after dinner. It's nice to have dinner together. It's nice to, and it's like a lot of people learned that they didn't want to lose that stuff and didn't want to do the hustle bustle anymore. And I think that was when a lot of women in particular started doing their side hustles. They're like, okay, now I needed a little bit of time to be able to explore with this and experiment with that. And they did. And that was when my book came out because, it was always on my to-do list, but I mean, when am I going to have time? I'm flying to conferences, I'm speaking at events, I'm going to this, that. And then all of a sudden I'm home. I'm like, ooh, I don't get this book out during this time where I'm like literally grounded, then when
Mhm.
am I going to do it? So that became my COVID project. And so many women started businesses and did some really effective things during that time.
Yeah. I mean, don't you think that should be on a billboard somewhere or some sort of like forever Instagram banner, whatever? Is that like the time when you couldn't just mechanically move from one to the next? Like once we all got off the track because the train stopped and you weren't doing all of this outpouring or outputting of energy to move people from place to place in service of all these others. It was like, oh, I'm going to take that time for me and I'm going to sort out what I want to do with it. And I'm going to think about, I've always wanted to start this business or I'm interested in, I mean, how many people, I don't even know how many people I know that started just posting on Instagram or posting on
Became
LinkedIn or things like
influencers.
that.
There are
Yeah.
people who are like huge influencers now because of COVID, because they're like, I'm home with all the kids, like in the parenting space.
Hmm.
100%. That became like got a million followers because they're posting about baking sourdough bread or
Yeah.
whatever during that time. And I think also what a lot of people learned who were kind of doing the grind was, hey, I can be really productive from home. I
Hmm.
don't have to do that commute. I don't have to be at the office. And luckily for us at Mabel's Labels, because we started this company and we were moms and we knew that we could be productive at weird times and weird places. I mean, I always joke that we're doing, business plans on play dates and that sort of thing. So we already had a lot of flexibility at work and offered that to our team. So when COVID hit and all these companies were really struggling about, oh my gosh, we've got to get everybody laptops, they're going to be able to work from home. We just slid right in because we're kind of already doing it. So I think a
Hmm.
lot of workplaces shifted during that time. And a lot of employees are like, heck no, I'm not doing a 3-hour commute a day to sit my butt in an office and be seen when I can be more productive at home. So it's been interesting from an HR perspective watching that all go down.
Yeah, and how it's things, now the revolt is in a lot of spaces. Like I get that there are some options where you have to be in the office and, that was whatever, but I love I actually don't need to do this in order to show up in this way. And, I know people that they commuted I live an hour outside of Boston and they're like, I commuted to Boston for years and I work from home. I am much more productive and, I'm not spending the gas money. I'm not like
They see
losing
their
3 hours of my
family.
day.
They're working
Yeah.
out, seeing their family. They're having dinner as a family. Their mental health is better. There's so many benefits. But yes, of course,
Mhm.
sometimes like our people who print, they can't print from home. But like
Yeah.
we definitely provide the flexibility of like if they've done their batches for the day or if they want to come on the weekend and get a head start, then do it. And then if you have an appointment Monday, we don't even need to hear about it. Just, as long as work gets done. And,
Mm.
I actually think judging by like managing by presenteeism is very lazy managing. Like, are you meeting
Mhm.
goal? you're meeting goal, great. That should be what you're after here, right? So yeah, it is. It's been so interesting in the entrepreneur space and the workspace to see how all that shifting has happened.
I love also to want to highlight for, everybody that the company started around flexibility, personal accountability, doing what needs to get done in a way that you can get it done is the company that has weathered a global pandemic and probably, I don't know how many kids, all of that stuff. All of these things came from a space of you're an adult and you are a responsible adult because you have all these people. You need time to work differently. Okay, work differently. And look at that. We're still doing great. You've got 50 employees. You have this massive brand and this company that is solving problems for other people. Like, why don't my kids have socks that come back to me from daycare? Let's stamp this thing and call it a day. So I think that, I hope that is always something that rises to the top for people when it comes to examples.
Reflection. I love that reflection because honestly, if somebody wants to go to see their kid in a Christmas play, don't pretend you have to go to the dentist. Go to your play.
Yeah.
We want to hear about it. Tell us about it. Awesome. You don't have to if you're on Facebook, you don't have to minimize because you're on social. You go on social media, do whatever you want. Get your work done. Yeah. It's all good.
Treating people like people. What?
Hey, it's amazing. You treat adults like adults and they act like adults. Whoa, mind blown. And you know what? It actually finds it's better for retention. So you're spending less on hiring. If they're happier in the workplace, they stick around longer and they're more entrepreneurial. They're more innovative. Give them space to play and do their thing. And then it ends up being good for your company in so many ways. So that's what we want.
Well, and you guys have had so many products come on now. I had ordered a bunch. This was a while ago. And then, of course, you go through them because your kids grow and you've got to label stuff and all of that. And I just went back on. You have a ton of new things that are on there.
Our product development team is just unreal. They're on LinkedIn today. I was just talking to them and they're just at it. And our customers are incredible. A lot of our products come out of our customers being like, hey, I need a split name pack for my 2 kids. And we're like, we've had that request a bunch of times. Let's throw this to product development and see what they think. So we're always trying, customer experience, customer loyalty is why we're here. So give them what they want. And a lot of our product development comes from suggestions.
Yeah. And I love one of my favorite things that I don't think can be shouted enough from the rooftops is the allergy labels, because I have known so many people more people than I would have thought that had kids with allergies, especially peanut and egg.
Yeah.
That, it's on every form that you fill out for school, right? But the people in the cafeteria aren't going through all that paperwork. And so many people are like, I'm really nervous about this. And you get one of those giant allergy stickers.
Yep. Last line of defense, right?
Yeah. It is so...
There's 100%. And you know what's so funny? Because there was 6 of them. I thought I dodged the bullet. My 15-year-old was like, Mom, I feel funny when I eat shrimp. And I was like, oh, you're fine. So then the next time we had, he's like, I'm not going to eat it. I'm like, oh, you're actually not going to eat it? He's like, no, it didn't make me feel well. I was like, oh, I guess I better. Anyways, I'm like, he's now EpiPen, allergy. I'm like, I thought I dodged the needing the allergy labels, the one set of labels I never wanted to have to order. And now I'm shellfish, Stinian, my last one. They're 15, so he's not going to come through it. But yeah, you can develop allergies. Who knew? I was not an allergy mom. I didn't pay a lot of attention to this. Now I know.
Yeah, I know. And you've provided a lot of relief for people that I know in that space that are
all about making mom's life easier. With the content we put out, with our blogs, with our products, we all just want to make families' lives easier and give peace of mind, because especially me being in the autism community, sometimes we have runners, sometimes we have, products, safety products as well.
I love that. Well, I would love for you to let people know where they can find you, all about your book, everything. Give the whole rundown.
Okay, so obviously you can find out about Mabel's Labels at mabelslabels.com. But for me, if you go to mabelslabels.com/Julie Cole, you can see the book, you can see what I'm up to. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn, socials, Instagram, all the places. And I can be found anywhere.
Anywhere and everywhere. I like it. You got it, right? You're an entrepreneur. You got to wave the
Visibility is important. You got to be visible, right? It makes you create credibility and loyalty, and all those things are good, especially in these times of AI. Get out there.
Yeah. And I also think too, like, if you have an idea, if you have something that you're working on, if you don't tell people about it, people aren't going to be like, you know what? I bet Julie Cole is going to create a label company someday. Like, people aren't going to, they're not going to know. So plant your flag. And
it's like when my kids are like, Mom, but I don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up. I'm like, did you think I was going to make labels? Like, really? I did my master's degree. I went to law school and I'm making labels. So I'm like, don't stress so much. Plus, half the jobs, like, there weren't social media manager jobs back 10 years ago. Like, everything's changing. So kids, don't stress about these grown-up jobs.
No, that's what I say to people all the time. It's like, tech founder was not on my life bingo card. Like, I don't know how I got here. I mean, I know how I got here. I walked all this path, but it's exactly that. So thank you so much for joining me today. It was lovely to meet one of the moms behind Mabel's Labels. And thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a great conversation.